Hi, Sleeping Giant Awake here with a response to Atheist versus Muslim. This is essentially a response to Labo's atheist criticism film of JaclynGlenn's film. And so I wanted to start off with the positive things that I think you did. You have a good sense of humor, and I appreciate that. And also, the other thing is when you talk about jihad, you talk about it as a struggle, and if every Muslim's jihad was as peaceful as yours, we really would have nothing to criticize about Islam. Now, going to the negative side of your videos, talking about essentially the long list of fallacies which you you still aren't learning. I mean, you're learning to address the issue, but then you have to throw some thing in the way. But going on, first you bring up the point of Wiki Islam, it being a wiki site, which means, and if there's one thing to take away from my video, it's about how a wiki page works. Wiki page is a collaboration of knowledge that everyone and anyone can contribute to. In a wiki site, you have contributors of all walks of life, and you also have all the known resources of its contributors. Like many sites, there are moderators and requirements for making such changes. Every claim that on the list that JaclynGlenn referenced to had a source. Every claim on that site carries the full weight of that source, which you failed to address. Instead of actually addressing the claims in any way, you dismiss them all as because of the process where anybody can contribute or edit it. Now, see, I doubt you're new to the concept of a wiki page. So this leaves one to wonder, is the reason why you're not addressing any of the actual claims on the wiki page because you're being intellectually lazy or dishonest to your audience? Because I don't think they know what a wiki page is, but I know that you do. I'm fairly sure you do, at least if you've done any research on how the internet and the contributions work. I would hope that you have that knowledge. Now, I made a list of other points I'll address on this video, but as you'll just ignore this video anyways, I'm going to just keep production low, because I was thinking about doing a full production, but whatever. So, the fallacies, I'm going to try and address these chronologically in your video. Logical fallacies is you dismissal of a valid criticism from appeal to scholarship, using you were saying JaclynGlenn's points were invalid because she's not a scholar. Dismissal of ignorance on a presumed premise, you would presume to know what morality she subscribes to. Subjective moral strawman, you create this subjective moral strawman where if you don't have a God or a belief in a God, that all of your morals are subjective. And not only that, you claim that they get worse, they get better, they fluctuate. It's like throwing dice. Honestly, I don't know how you can say that, how you can make that claim. We don't suddenly decide what's good and bad by rolling dice. We decide what's good and bad by by how other human beings are affected by our actions. So instead, unlike your objective moral stance, a subjective stance can improve. It can get better. Unlike the bullshit that you guys believe about homosexuality, that can't improve. You have it's been written, it's canonized, there's nothing that anybody can do to make you believe that homosexuality is fine. But whatever. Also on objective morality is you don't have an objective moral code. Like any religious text, the Quran is open to interpretation and has been read to mean different things at different times. So, dependent on your interpretation of the Quran, which like the Bible tends to be favorable to whatever it is you personally want it to mean, then that's what it means. Now, I also can't have a hard time believing that you're defending pedophilia by early menstruation caused in harsh conditions such as desert living. So, and then your source to defend that idea is a philosopher Montesquieu. Shouldn't you be sourcing a medical journal or a sociology journal that would have a little more validity in this stance? And you're also talking about an outdated philosopher who was not known that's outside of his known scope, because in philosophy there are different scopes. Then you claim that Allah is outside of time, space, and matter. This creates more issues than it resolves. How can something with those qualities interact with space, time, and matter? Of course, you're not going to answer that. How can you know that something with those qualities exists? And how come these exact same qualities are shared with all imagined things such as numbers, perfect shapes, and such as a perfect circle? Mickey Mouse and even the flying spaghetti monster, they are outside of time, space, and don't have any matter. They're in our imaginations. That's what makes them outside of that realm. Then you talk about all things that exist have a beginning, and all beginnings must have a cause. There's no demonstration of this thing. There's no demonstration of any beginning. There's demonstration of change. Cause and effect is about the observation of physical causes with physical stimuli creating measurable results. A law, being non-physical and non-quantifiable, can never be stated as having been a known cause or a known effect. Really, if you're going to make that claim, you have to substantiate it with something observable, not scriptural. And that's what makes your use of that Krauss debate actually kind of ironic, because Krauss wipes the floor with the Islamic apologist. You should actually source your videos, which I'll probably do in my description. And now, you talked about jihad, which I've kind of addressed, and again, if every Islam believer was as peaceful as you, we would really not have an issue. But let's put that on hold until we get to the end. By saying Islam is peaceful but not pacifist, you might as well be saying this: Islam is peaceful on its own terms, otherwise it can be violent and destructive. Then you say that Muslims get paradise, or the difference between a non-believer and a believer doing good moral acts is that when the Muslim shows courage and ends up dying, that Muslims get paradise. Now, I know you meant it tongue-in-cheek, but what qualifies a Muslim for paradise varies by sect. So helping an innocent person who's not of your faith may, in some people's eyes, be quantifiably good enough to get you into paradise immediately. Otherwise, killing heathens and atheists and others who do not share your beliefs has been interpreted to mean the same thing, that it's an immediate ticket to paradise. And then moving on to the secular and atheist example that you use, is that secularists and atheists have fought and died for noble causes that they believe are worth fighting and dying for. Then you speak on apostasy, an act of treason back then and in less developed countries now can be simply openly criticizing the viewpoint of the status quo. And if you had read that list and the source material, which was linked in that list that JaclynGlenn posted on her video, and also which you so readily dismissed, you would see that there were people murdered under Muhammad's instructions for just that. That is what I like about living in a secular society, is that I have freedom of speech. I can openly criticize my own government, such as you did. But far too common are the news stories showing that when women in Islamic countries do so, they risk being beaten in stone. Where are their fair trials? The treason in our society is completely different than what it is under a religious rule. It's like comparing apples and oranges. You're right when saying a majority. You're valid in your point when you talk about a majority of Muslims being peaceful and decent people. I agree with you, but the religion of Islam is not. Also, you reference Sam Harris and you reference his earlier views about preemptively nuclear striking Muslim countries or radical Islamic countries in order to prevent American deaths. It's a straw man held by a much younger Harris, and I don't need to apologize for him. I don't agree with his work. I'm not a huge Harris fan, but to say that all atheists can justify preemptive strikes, or that JaclynGlenn was even referring to it, is a kind of a straw man, and you're also poisoning the well. And he himself has retracted those statements. And so I don't know how you're going to hold JaclynGlenn to that. The reason that the U.S. country is the only country that has used nuclear weapons is because there has been proactive measurements taken by governments of the world, not just the United States, to prevent rogue states from having nuclear capacity, and also from developing nuclear capacity into the ability to launch over large bodies of land and sea. A godless or secular society can equally cater, as you pointed out, that Stalin was anti-humanistic, but secular societies can also equally oppose anti-secularist leaders, a godless society. And then you point out that Stalin, that he was anti-humanistic. He did a lot of what most people would call moral wrongs. But a godless or a secular society can oppose societies and leadership like that. It has to do with the level of humanism that the leadership has. For example, the U.S. is the #1 secular society in the world. Stalin was an awful human being, and that was on him. You can't blame his religious beliefs because he didn't have any. That same way you can't blame his lack of religious beliefs. You can't group us all together. We don't believe the same things. And what I think that you're inferring is that the only reason that most people don't start killing other people immediately is because of the religious beliefs that they hold. That's bullshit. Many of us have the same reasons for not killing people for the same reason that you do, or not committing crimes against them, or not harming them as you do. And that's primarily the reason for this is our love for other human beings. And we don't need a God to tell us to love each other. We have just one fewer, and also we have just one fewer justification for killing those who oppose our beliefs. And this is a big one. And you mentioned it earlier. We don't believe that when we die in the name of God or Allah, that we will be received in eternal paradise. Peace be upon you.